Bill, go ahead and take it away.
I got it. The scene is the green room of the British Association of Barbershop Singers Convention in Harrogate, England. The time is May 1998. In the green room are 60 members of the Big Chicken Chorus from Marietta, Georgia, who have been invited over to be the demonstration chorus at their convention. Clay Hine, that long, tall drink of water who was the baritone in Fred, is the director of the chorus. And he has gone through a half hour of very careful warm-ups and making everything just perfect. And the energy in the room is going up and up and up. And he happens to glance up and sees one of our 6'6", 295-pound leads wearing the medal that the chorus had won the previous year. They had a 5th place medal. And he said, "Oh, guys, please, not everybody has a medal, so would you please take the medals off? We want to be uniform when we go out." And the lead leaned forward rather pugnaciously and said, "I worked my butt off for that medal, and nobody's going to make me take it off." Can you say a leadership problem? In that instance, something happened. I will tell you about it, but first, I want to pose a question to you as chapter presidents. Should the chapter president have intervened? It's a question. We are faced with, as chapter leaders, people who create discontent and upset things. Is it the director's responsibility to police, or is it the president's responsibility to police? Having done both, I have an opinion, but I'd like to hear yours. So open up, tell me, President, we'll just do it like this. Should the president intervene? Thumbs up if you agree. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I get, and this is where I get, Mike went like this. The answer is, I don't know. The answer is yes, you should. Yes, you should, very simply because the director has a very specific role in the chapter. It's critical, but it's not his role is not administrative. He's not the person who should be doing what we just talked about. Now back to real life. Here's what actually happened in Harrogate, England. Clay Hine walked away, and for 5 minutes, very uncomfortable, absolutely silent minutes, he walked around the room until he got his emotions under control, came back and said, "If you got him, wear him, it doesn't matter," and kept going. That was one of the most emotionally intelligent things I ever saw done in my 44 years in barbershop, because that could have completely derailed everything that was going on. One person's pugnacious attitude could have taken the entire day out and thrown out the window. Our role as president is an interesting one. We are people we have volunteers, and we've got a great problem in that everybody is a volunteer. So what I want to talk to you about today is not the stuff that I put into the chat. I just put some really important resources for you in the chat. I'm going to open it up and just show them and make sure that they're there. There's a chapter president workbook there that's available from the Barbershop Harmony Society, and there's the link. The Business of Barbershop, hugely important book available from the society. There's the link. A guide to financial reviews on how financial reviews should be done in the barbershop world. Hugely important to us as presidents. But I don't want to talk about that stuff. I want to talk about the intangibles. The intangibles are, how do you get stuff done in an all-volunteer environment without pissing people off? So this course is about leadership. I have been teaching leadership for over 50 years. I have led teams from 2 to well over 500 in all kinds of situations. But what I want to talk about is not theoretical leadership. I want to talk about practical leadership, things that you can actually do when you get off this Zoom to be a better leader. So I hope everybody had a chance to download and look at the handout that I have sent out. Does anybody not have it? Good. Then we can work on that basis. I'm going to foreshadow your course very shortly for you with one thing. No matter where you are on your leadership journey, And all of us are on a journey, whether we've been doing this for 5 days or 50 years. You only need to do 2 things in order to be a better leader when you leave this session. You need to learn how to ask the questions and listen carefully to the answers. That's a theme that you will pick up as we go through. So, as a chapter leader, how do you get things done? How do you get things done? This is the audience participation point. You guys can jump horn in if you'd like to. As a chapter leader, how do you get it done? The answer is you either do it yourself or you get it done through other people. That makes sense? It's a binary choice. Either do it yourself or get it done through other people. And if you choose to get it done through other people, then you have a choice. Are you going to manage or are you going to lead? So it raises a very interesting question. And I have a PowerPoint program that I would like to share with you. Hang on just one second. I'm going to bring it up. Hang on a second. There we go. And kill that. Go back to here. And I now need to share. I hope I can share. Share screen. Yes, I can. Very good. Okay. Where is it? Went away on me. Huh. All right. Here we go. Now you should be able to see this, correct? Everybody say yes? Okay, good. So what I'm trying to show you here is a basic concept of leadership that we all need to be aware of. And that concept is coming up. One of the most difficult things to understand about leadership is that you are not what you think you are. You are what you are perceived to be by others. Fundamental. If you get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I'm going to lead today, that's a management thought. If you're thinking about something that you need, it's management. If you're thinking about something that they need, it's leadership. So no matter what happened when you walked in this room, when you came on here today, everybody came in with a concept of what leadership was. And everybody's concept is right because leadership is intensely personal. But there's a difference between management and leadership. I want to give you a concept. Think of management and leadership as a balance beam. One end is management, one end is leadership. Management is about stuff. It's about control. It's about numbers. Leadership is a little bit fuzzy. It's about something else. Anybody here been trained as a pilot? Bob Cox, I think you're a pilot, aren't you? No, well, somebody got to be a pilot in here somewhere.
Nope.
In my lifetime, I've been exposed to 1,000 pilots, both military and civilian. And what I'm about to tell you, these friends of mine have validated. When you go through ground school, basic flight training, you are taught that you are the pilot. As the pilot, you can inject change into the aircraft. Using the controls, you can make the plane rise, you can make the plane dive, you can make the plane turn. Using everything, you can make it slip sideways. And while you are learning, because you're a human being, you tend to overcorrect. And pretty soon, the plane is bucking like a bronco. And in ground school, to correct that, they teach you to do something that's completely counterintuitive. They tell you to let go of the controls because the plane's aerodynamically stable and will fly itself if you stop messing with it. Leadership's about control. Management's about control. Leadership's about letting go. Leadership's about trying to get things done without telling people to do things. So let me pose a question to you. When is the last time, hang on a second, I've lost my pace in here. Here we go. When is the last time you influenced someone? When is the last time you inspired someone? When is the last time you got something done without giving direction to make sure it was done? The reason I ask this question is because here we go back here. I'm going to go back to share screen again. Leadership is, I'll get this thing to work. There we go. Leadership here, as I define it, is the ability to influence or inspire others to achieve the results that you envision. Leadership is the ability to influence or inspire others to achieve the results that you envision. The goal here is for us as chapter leaders to understand what it is we are trying to do and then figure out how to get it done with, as I said earlier, without pissing people off, because people vote with their feet, right? So leadership is, there's a key point of leadership. The key point is that leadership always has a purpose, and that purpose is to get something done. I had a thought, and it went away. Cicero, the grand orator of the Roman Senate, when he spoke, people marveled. But when Caesar spoke, men marched. Leadership always, without exception, has a purpose, and that purpose is to get something done. Just like management, to get something done, okay? So there's a grand secret of leadership too, and the grand secret of leadership is amazing. Leadership is based on relationships. It is based on personal connections. There is a book that, when you say management, sometimes you mean leadership. I was in the U.S. Navy for 30 years. They said management when they meant leadership, and they said leadership when they meant management. These two terms are used interchangeably, and yet they are not. I did not have a clear concept of that until I read a book that was written in 1972 by a chaired professor of management and strategy, management and leadership at the University of Southern California. A fellow by the name of Warren Bennett says this: management is getting people to do the right thing. Leadership is getting people to want to do the right thing. So the question, the grand secret is, we need to establish personal connections as leaders in order to get things done, because management is about stuff and numbers. Leadership is about relationships and personal connections. Is this making sense to you? I want to stop here for a second and look. And Judy, Katie, you put me on this one, so I can't see the entire screen here. So I'm going to put it back here. Yeah, now I got a gallery view. Is this making sense to you guys? Okay. I cannot overemphasize in all the years I've been teaching leadership, the simple stuff is what people misunderstand. People think leadership is hard. It's not. It's dead simple. If you are focused on what the people in your organization need, what they want and what they need, that is a leadership thought at the very basic degree. So what can we do about it? The issue is we share the same basic problem, and that's this. The problem we have, and this is on page 4 of your handout, is that every single person here in our world is a volunteer. The unalterable fact is that we cannot use the two normal practices that we use in business in the barbershop world. We don't have the power to hire and fire. We don't have the power to offer financial incentives. We've got to make them want to come back. And so you need some skills. And I contend the 4 skills that we as chapter presidents need are: 1, the ability to build trust. 2, the ability to communicate effectively, which means asking questions and, with the greatest of love and respect, shutting up and listening to the answers. 3, the ability to flex, which I will explain. And lastly, the ability to get stuff done. Does this catch anybody by surprise? Stopping, looking at, oops, hit the wrong button here. Does this catch anybody by surprise? I'm not talking about the nuts and bolts of being a president. That's not this course. That's why I'm giving you the resources I've sent to you. This course is how to use that stuff in order to make your chapter better. So far, so good. Checking in. And by the way, if you have a question, throw it at me. There's question and answer time at the end. Put it in chat or speak out. Just let me know. Okay. What is the single biggest problem that all leaders have? Anybody?
Participation.
Participation.
I think it's communication.
Sorry, please. Jim?
Communication.
Communication.
Delegation.
Delegation. I'm seeing nodding heads. You all like all these?
Yeah.
My 50 years experience of leading teams and teaching tells me that the biggest single problem we all share is that we assume trust. Assumption is the soft underbelly of leadership. All of us operate on assumptions every single day. The problem is that you cannot assume trust. Let me show you what I mean. Where am I? I keep seeing too many things on my screen here. Here we go. There we go. All right. We cannot assume trust. Trust is not automatic. Here is some research that's going to blow your mind. 61% of people who work in the United States believe that management doesn't tell them the truth. 38% of employees believe that management keeps their promises. This means that you cannot assume trust. Just like in business, chorus trust must be earned. And the ability to build trust is endemic. So what is trust? This is page 5 of your handout. What is trust? Somebody define trust for me. Anybody? Then let me do it for you. Here's the book definition of trust. A firm belief in the reliability, integrity, or character of a person or a group. A firm belief in the reliability, integrity, or character of a person or a group. Does that ring true for you in the barbershop world? Think about the team of which you're a part. Your management team, your chorus leadership team, the bass section, the chorus, the quartets. Do you think that trust is built on this element? I'm seeing nods and heads. Okay, good. What is the cost of low trust in a chapter or chorus? Anybody?
Everything.
Yeah. Okay. Everything.
Disengagement.
Okay. Say it again, Kristen.
Oh, sorry. Disengagement.
Disengagement. Yeah. Absolutely true. Okay. So here's the real question. What are some of the symptoms of low trust in a chapter?
I think that's what happens when you end up having to do everything. Because if there's low trust, then nobody's going to want to team up with you to participate in any of the goals that you have.
That can be, absolutely. Jim, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just saying that it's back to that communication to me. Like if the trust isn't there, they're not believing anything you're saying.
Agreed. Other symptoms.
Conflict between people.
Conflict, exactly right, Matt. But how about absenteeism?
Yeah.
How about finding something else to do on rehearsal night? How about sitting in a corner by themselves, not being engaged when you take breaks? These are all symptoms of things. We as chapter leaders, we as chapter presidents have a very specific role here. We are the ones who have to invest in the chapter trust and work on it. I was president of Bellevue for 5 years, and I worked very hard each week at making sure that we had something that talked about it. One of the things I did was we had a very, very specific credo, a music credo, and a chapter mission and a vision, and we talked about it. We actually talked about it in the chorus rehearsals, and it made people think of something bigger than themselves. That was one thing we did. Now, I'm going to ask some very personal, intense questions, and I do not want you to blurt out an answer, which does not seem to be a problem with this particular group. But anyway, these are questions I want you to think about, okay? Here you go. Is low trust a problem for you in your chapter right now? And the real question is the bottom one. How do you know? This is the part of my presentation. This is where it gets personal for you. You need to think about this, because if you have not thought about trust in your chapter, I can guarantee you no one else has. We're going to talk about why that is as we go a little long here. But now let's talk about the best part of that is how do you build trust? You build trust. This is the bottom of page 5 on your handout. Continuity. Maintain contact. Be visible. Be there. Be part of the conversation every day. I mean, every rehearsal time. Care. Give a damn. Meet their needs. Be a giver, not a taker. Being president, does the concept of being a servant leader come to mind? For people who have not studied leadership, the concept of servant leadership is really quite simple. We exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is our job is to serve others. That's the concept of servant leadership. So the idea here is if you approach the role of being chapter president as you're their servant and you're leading them, you've got to find a way to figure out what they want. That's where I'm talking about ask questions and listening to the answers, which I'll get to here in a couple of minutes. So that you can care. The next on the list, communicate, 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 but not just telling them things. Share information, ideas, feelings, be genuine. Listen. We're going to talk about communication here in a couple of minutes. Competence. This one's surprising people. Show skill in doing your job. That is why I'm giving you those resources. The 3 that are there are they will help you immensely. By the way, if I asked Judy to send out to everybody to take the BHS course, the President's course, before they did this. If you did, then the stuff I've got in the chapter President workbook will mirror some of that for you. And I want you now to focus on the one at the bottom of the page here. I call it one more biggie. Beware of sarcasm or teasing. And I will plead guilty here. I like to tease, especially I like to tease and poke and prod. It never works well. It's been one of my personal failures for many, many years, because sometimes it's taken wrong. It's not only taken wrong by the person that you tease, but by people who overhear it. And you can create conflict without even thinking about it. So beware of sarcasm, beware of teasing. If you've got great, great friends you've known for 20 years and you're working well with them, fine. But if you have new people in the chapter, they may be put off by it. Just wanted to let you know about that one. So, questions at this point. So skill number 1 is the ability to build trust. Questions on trust building. Seeing none, moving on to skill number 2. Skill number 2 is the ability to communicate effectively. What this means is, this is the fill in the blank at the top of the page. Communication is shared meaning. As I explain on the page that's there in front of you, many times people think they communicate by broadcasting information. The problem is that's sort of like a radio wave. It goes out and it's only going to be received if somebody has the receiver on. True communication only occurs when the broadcasters receive and understood as it was intended to be. So what is effective communication? In the leadership sense, it is this. Communication always has a purpose. Always has a purpose. You communicate with, these are the fill in the blanks. What? You're answering questions. What? When? How? Who? And the best question a leader can ask is, what if? These are the questions that the leaders can ask that will focus the communication in a leadership way. At the bottom of page 6, there are 2 questions that are posed. And I want you to think about this as you are think about talking to your chapter. What is the reason for the communication? What are you really trying to convey? What this really means is that as chapter presidents, we should have no off-the-cuff remarks. When you get up in front of the chapter, know what you're going to say. Have the points made out. Whenever I was standing in front of the chapter, and Matt Herbst can attest to this, I generally had something in my hand, and it was a reminder of what the point I wanted to make. Because if you make an off-the-cuff remark, somebody's going to draw the wrong conclusion from that. And what that does is it creates confusion. Turn the page and look at page number 7 now. there is something that is hugely important that I want you may not have thought about. The question is, if there's a communication issue, are you causing the communication issue, the problem? I'm going to see if I can raise this up a little bit because I want you to take a real solid look at this picture. See the slightly rotund or white-haired guy right here? Slightly rotund. Don't laugh at me, Katie. This is a picture of me at Harmony College Northwest a few years ago. Now I want you to look at the people around the table. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at our table. I'm talking. Who's listening? These 3 guys right here. This guy is checked out. This guy has turned away, has another conversation. Am I creating the problem? This is where we need to be honest with ourselves. The issue is not the communication, what we're saying, it's how we say it. There's a fill in the blank on the middle of this page. It says, everyone speaks without thinking, but leaders must be aware that there is a consequence to this, and that consequence is misunderstanding, confusion. You can only control what comes out of your mouth, which is why you need to be clear about the purpose of your communication before you speak. The issue is, it's absolutely fundamental. We speak at about 150 words per minute. But up here inside the noggin, we are thinking at about 600 words per minute, which means you can have a complete conversation going on inside your head and it's disconnected with what's coming out of your mouth. This is not supposition. This is incontrovertible fact. Okay? So what will help in every instance is to reduce uncertainty and misunderstanding. Make your message simple. As simple as possible. If you can get up and speak about one thing at a time, best possible communication of all. But if it's not, organize what you have to say so you stay on message and then repeat your message. Jack Welch, who at the time of his retirement as the chairman of GE, was thought of as the best manager in America, said this is simplicity, consistency, and repetition. That's how you get the thing through. If Greg Cronlund was on, he would be able to answer this one for me. How many mentions of a company's name do you need to have before the company is recognized? Research says, Jerry, you said what? I was like 4 or 5?
27.
27. There you go. Yes, sir. 27. Now, in order to recognize what that company does, it needs another 27. So here's some difficulty. If we as chapter presidents stand up in front of our course and say something once, we cannot expect the people on the risers who are there in you have anywhere from 12 to 25 to 50 people on risers, they're hearing that once. They're not getting it. It needs to be repeated. It needs to be consistent. Does this make sense to you? We as chapter presidents need to ensure that the message that they want to get is given and repeated as necessary. Does this make sense? Yes, no? Okay, good. All right. So the fill in the blank on page 7 is simplicity, consistency, and repetition. Yes? All right. What is the most difficult part of communicating?
Getting people to listen.
How about we just turn that around and we say the most difficult part of communication is listening.
Listening, yeah.
And that's not on their part. That's on our part. We don't listen. How many people here, show of hands, you're introduced to somebody, they say their name, and in 2 minutes you forgot their name? It happens to everybody.
In 10 seconds?
10
Like 5
seconds.
seconds?
You know why that is? Because as soon as they say their name, we're thinking about how we're going to say what we're going to say in response. We're listening with one ear. We don't actually hear what they're saying because we don't listen effectively. There actually are some levels of listening, which I want to introduce you to. Hang on just 1 second. Bring them up. The levels of listening are, hang on a second, there we go. Level 1 is pretend listening. You're getting ready to step, you get out of your car at the rehearsal hall, you're on the way in, and the chorus chatterbox comes alongside who really wants to share. And he's sharing, he or she is sharing and sharing and sharing. You have things to do, so you are being polite and but it's just washing over. This is pretend listening. The second level is selective listening. This is listening with one ear. Remember, we process at 600 words a minute, and we speak at 150. So when things are going on in front of you in the chapter, you may have a lot of things going on inside your head, Katie. You've got all those things that you need to do. And so during warm-up, when Drew is warming up the course, you may not be actually listening to what he's saying because you know where he's going. So you partially listen and only get pieces of it. The third one is active listening. Active listening is when you are listening with both ears and you are totally focused. As an example, here you have on the screen, you have a coach in front of a quartet, and they're honed in on what the coach is giving them. Now, here is an uncomfortable truth. We need to be actively listening. Nobody can live there. Nobody can do it. Active listening is so rare that when it happens, people stop cold and do this. There is an exercise that I do when I do this course. I pair people up, and I hang on a second. I'll do that in a couple of minutes. Yeah, it's coming up a little later on. I'll leave that one alone. The bottom line is that you can't live in active listening, but when you are engaged in a conversation with somebody in your chorus, you need to actively listen to that. You need to engage in that moment to actively listen to what they say. Does that make sense? So you go into active. How do you do it? You focus on the person. Hang on a sec. That's on the next page. You focus on the person and you watch what they are saying as in the way how they say it as well as what they're saying. To actively listen, absorb what was said, and then ask a question based on what they said. Listen and absorb what was said, and then ask a question. Get the point? You ask a question, and then you listen to what they say and ask a question based on what they said. This is where I put in that exercise I was telling you about. When you do this, I split, have the room pair up, and I ask them to ask each other questions. What's going well? What's not going well? What could be in their work, in their area? And the person who is asking the questions is prohibited from sharing information, sharing experiences. All the person is able to do is ask the question, what's going well, listen to the answer, and then ask a follow-on question based on what he heard. And in the 25 years I have been using this technique, in every single instance, what happens is as soon as the person asks a question based on what they heard, the other person leans in. It is so rare to be listened to that people actually lean in when somebody listens to them. And the only way that we can prove that we are listening is by saying back to them something they said to us, asking a question based on what we've heard. Does this make sense to you? It is not a trick. It is a technique to engage in more fruitful conversation. It is a technique that you can use virtually every time. By the way, this thing, I was teaching in San Francisco some years ago, and I had a guy come in. I taught this technique. He came in the very next day and he said, my teenage son and I have not talked for well over a year. Last night I used this technique and we talked. He talked to me because I was listening to him. So it works in personal settings. So I know personally, it works in chapter settings. So far, so good. Yes? All right, good. Now let's go on to skill number 3. I'm mindful of time here. Skill number 3 is the ability to flex. And what I mean is to flex your communication. Here's a simple fact of life. Every one of us is different. And as a chapter leader, as a chapter president, we got to keep this very simple fact in mind. We all have a preferred style of communicating, don't we? Some love to just extemporate. They're really good. They stand up and they can speak extemporaneously. Some of them speak write very well. And that's the preferred method of communication. but everybody listens differently. Everybody takes it in differently. And as a result, there are different communication styles. What you see here is a very simple four-square box. On the north-south axis, you have assertiveness. On the east-west axis, you have expressiveness. If you are a person who is high on assertiveness and low on expressiveness, you are what is known as a direct communicator. You want the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, the how. You like facts, and you have no problem in telling people this. Can you say Winston Churchill, as an example, was a direct communicator? Now, if you're high on assertiveness and high on expressiveness, you are a spirited communicator. You are the life of the party. You light up a room. People naturally gravitate to you. Can you say Bill Clinton? No matter what one thinks of his politics or him personally, when he speaks, he is mesmerizing and people gravitate toward him. That's a spirited communicator. Now, if you are low on assertiveness, but high on expressiveness, you're what's known as a considerate communicator. A considerate communicator is a person who is interested in ensuring that everybody fully understands exactly what's going on and takes a lot of time to get all these things put out. This is like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a very considerate leader. Jimmy Carter, in his one term as president, did something that no one else thought could be done. It's interesting right now, given what's going on in Gaza. But in 1978, he got Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin, Sadat of Egypt, Menachem Begin of Israel, together at Camp David, and he created he negotiated with them the Camp David Accords, for which the two of them got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. Anybody ever read the Camp David Accords? It is a statement of the things upon which they do not agree. That's what it is. By definition, they agree on everything else. Only a considerate communicator could have gotten that. That's what the value of every one of these people has value. That's his. Now, if you are low on assertiveness and low on expressiveness, you're what is known as a systematic communicator. Facts are prime. That's really think. Can you say Elon Musk is a systematic communicator? Now, where are you up here? You're going to be a little bit of everything. You're going to find yourself, in some instances, I'm this, in some instances, I'm doing that. That's normal. But this is just a shorthand way to think about how you communicate. So in some instances, you can be spirited, you can be systematic, direct, considerate. It doesn't matter, but you need to be thinking about how the people receive what you give them. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. Greg, you had a very strange look on your face when you put your thumb up here. I think something was passing through your mind, a certain experience. I'm not going to ask.
I was taking a screenshot.
Okay. Okay, got it. All right. Moving on. The next thing we have, the next skill you need is perhaps one of the ones that people don't think about, and that's the ability to get stuff done. And I'm going to give you 5 thoughts for the ability to get things done. Think before you act. Ask appropriate questions. Listen carefully. Shift your mindset and set the right expectations. Let me take you through these. We're now on page 11 of your handout. Think before you act. The first, whoops, I moved too far. There we go. The first and most important element in really getting things done is to think before you act. This is so fundamental to us as chapter leaders that we don't even give it a thought, which is precisely why it's so important. When a situation arrives, it's a problem. How do most people act? They start throwing ideas out there, see what'll stick. Oh, we'll grab that and do this. That is how everybody approaches it. Unfortunately, this often creates confusion at the time when clarity is necessary. The best leaders don't do this. What they do is think things through before they jump in. Think twice before you speak once, the old adage. That's where this comes from. Clear? Okay. The next one is ask appropriate question. When a problem arises in your chapter or your course, what's your job? To solve the problem, right? Wrong. It is not your job to do. It is your job as chapter president to ensure it is done. So this is going right to the key that Bob Cox gave us, and he said one of the key issues for leaders is delegation. It is virtually impossible for you to do everything. And it's virtually impossible for you to know everything. And yet we assume, again, that wonderful word, that as president, we're supposed to be able to do everything. No, it's impossible. I've been in barbershop 44 years. I have sung in 6 districts, 10 choruses, and there's a hell of a lot about this world that I have no clue. I don't know a lot of stuff. So I rely upon people around me to do it. I engage my chapter team. We're now engaging the district team. It is the leader's responsibility, and there's a fill in the blank on this page that's exceedingly important. It is the leader's responsibility to ask questions, and the fill in is because nobody else will. If leaders don't ask questions, what happens? Chapters wither and they die. If the leader is asking who, what, when, how, and most importantly, what if, posing questions to the board, posing questions to the board members at large that they can go out and spend some time talking to people in the chapter, you're going to have a conversation going on about making the chapter better. Now, why don't leaders ask questions? I have it laid out at the bottom of page 12. It's real simple. Ego. We don't ask questions because we think that we might give an indication that we don't know what we're doing. Nothing could be further from the truth. Even if you have a twinge in that area, I want to point out the very last fill-in on this page. The person in charge is the person who asked the last question. You ever have a meeting where the meeting goes off the rails and people start and you go down a rabbit hole? Ask one question. What does this have to do with the matter at hand? The answer is always nothing. Good, let's get back on track. The person in charge in a meeting is the person who asks the last question, or in charge in anything. So if you are asking the questions, you're doing well. So the question obviously is, okay, Hickman, so what are some appropriate questions? Well, I think I can help you here. So there's a fill in the blank on page 13. So hang on a second, we'll start there. On page 13, how would you feel if somebody in your chapter said, why don't you know your music? What's your problem? Don't you know better than that? I have heard these questions asked in a barbershop setting. I actually have. Remember, I've been in 10 choruses, 44 years. These questions have been asked. Been small choruses, large choruses. These are questions that create defensiveness. These are questions that shut down other people. These are questions designed to create problems. So what can you do? What kinds of questions can you ask? You can ask appropriate questions like these. What's been going well? What's not going well? What could be done better? This is one of the most important things to take away from this course is this set of 3 questions. I want you to note a couple of things. I want you to note the tense. It is third person impersonal language. It's not first person. I'm not saying, what are you doing well? I'm saying, what's going well? It is also positive, negative change. Okay? This is a tool. This set of questions is a single tool that you as a leader can use. If you ask the questions, what's going well, what's not going well, what could be done better, and you ask the question and respond to what you hear, then you are going to be able to get more information going. When I was president of Bellevue, I asked our board members at large to use these questions in their conversations with the members of the chorus. They reported back at the board meeting that they got people started talking to them and giving them more information as a result of doing this. I have been teaching this tool for 25 years, and it really, really, really does work. Thoughts or comments on this one at this point? David?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you because a lot of times people don't like to be pointed out. And I was just thinking to myself, oftentimes there's a reason behind it. And so you need to ask a question, like you're struggling with your music or whatever, but do you have the computer skills or, just different things that are hindering the person?
Yeah, that's the engagement. That is establishing the personal connection. When I say personal connection in relationship, I'm not talking about having a buddy you can go get a drink with. I'm talking about engaging with a person one-on-one in a way that make them feel that you're getting to know them individually. That's what the relationship is about. So there is a methodology in asking questions, and that's on the very next page in your handout, page 14. So let me fill it in for you. The methodology is ask one question at a time. How many of us have been asked a question, and before we can even answer it, there's a follow-on question. The follow-on question, what are you supposed to do? If you ask one question at a time and then pause at the end of a question, allow silence to exist. We share a common problem. We are Americans, by Americans writ large, Canadians and lower 48ers and Alaskans, we all share the same problem. We don't like silence. We don't like silence so much that if the person doesn't answer, we will pose another question. We will say something in order to stop feeling uncomfortable. If a person does not respond, and says, this is obviously something that is concerning for you, have them write something down or share with you in a different way, but allow the silence to be used. So ask one question at a time, pause it to the question, and then listen carefully. And by the way, listening carefully to the silence is part of the gig. Number 4, ask follow-up questions based on what you've heard in order to get deeper understanding of what the issue is. And finally, number 5, your mama was right. Say thank you. So 5 things: ask one question at a time, pause at the end of the question, listen carefully, ask follow-up questions, and say thank you. This is a way for you to get things done. At the bottom of the page, there's a fill in the blank. It says how to listen effectively. Here it is. Whoops, went too far. Listen carefully and shut the hell up. Listen carefully and overcome your God-driven desire to flap your gums. Let the person who's there speaking to you speak and then respond. This is what you can do. Now, in the last couple of minutes here, we want to spend some time on the last thing I said about shifting your mindset. What this really means is, what is your job? I gave you a clue early on. Your job is not to do. Your job is to get the job done. So how do you do it? It's really, really simple. A lot more simple than most of us give our chance. You ask questions and you listen to the answers. The mind shift part is the assumption. I want to tell you, if you assume you do not know the answer, you're going to get a whole different level of answer because you're listening differently. This is very personal to me. I am a non-quantitative person. To me, numbers are very difficult to deal with. 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 2. It's a joke, but I'm a non-quantitative person. It's a big deal. Now, I was a very successful naval officer in a very highly technical world, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to teach myself how to ask questions that would get people to explain things in simple language I could understand. I assumed I didn't know the answer when I asked the questions. And so I got through my first couple of years as a naval officer, and then I started using that technique in other scenarios. When I was asked a question, I would assume I didn't know, so I'd ask the question away. I was seeking their advice. The one thing that everybody is willing to talk about is themselves. They're always going to be able to talk about themselves. So when you ask a question that goes to their ego, what's going on here? What could be done better? How can we make this thing better? They'll tell you. If you listen and ask questions sincerely, the mindset shift, if you assume you don't know the answer, will change everything. Does this make sense to you? Good. Very last thing I want to talk about that we have not yet covered is this. Whoop, back up. Here we go. Setting expectations. If you really want to get stuff done, be clear about what your expectations are. How many people in here, by a show of hands, have written expectations for your group? And I see 4 hands out of 28 people. And that's not a surprise. Mostly, we are unclear about what we expect from our group. We are unclear because we haven't thought about it. We haven't given it a clue. Now, I will point at Katie here. You can't see her, but that's where she is on my screen. Katie and PDX Voices have get back, lady. Katie and PDX Voices have created a 5-year plan, and they're executing it. Bellevue has a strategic plan that we wrote, and we're executing that. Boise has one. I know that they're doing. So a thing that you can do is write down your expectations. If you don't do this, if you only have general ideas rather than clear expectations, the results are sad but inevitable. The leader is unclear about what he or she wants. So those who are being led are unclear about what to provide. So they tell the leader what they think the leader wants to know. See the difference? So here is my task for you as we wind this thing down, to articulate the major expectations for your course. If you don't have a strategic plan, if you don't have the 5-year plan, if you haven't done it to this point, what would you like your chapter? What's your major expectation? I'll tell you an expectation that I had is that every single person in the chapter would do something other than just sing. The expectation was that everybody would contribute in some way. You have to have an additional responsibility. One way to do that is to get the job survey down from the BHS website, put it out to the chapter, and find out what their skill sets are. Yeah, yes, Sid, I will. And that the director doesn't have to be the bad guy or a bad girl. Our job as president is to make the thing run right. Real simple. What I've tried to share with you today is what 50 years of teaching leadership has taught me. It is important for us to be able to ask questions and listen to the answers. The very next thing on the list was a list of the chapter resources that I put out there for you. If you have not downloaded those documents, please do so. They're going to be indispensable to you as president. The chapter workbook, I'll bring it up here so you can all see it. Yeah. It is the Chapter President Workbook, the Business of Barbershop Workbook, and the Guide to Financial Reviews These are all current documents. They were put up in 2019, so they all have a currency to them. And with that, I'm open to any question that you have. Katie, any questions pop up?
There has not been any questions posted in the chat, so we have about 5 minutes if anybody would like to ask anything or throw something in the chat. And if we don't get to it the next 5 minutes, I'll just save it until the Q&A at the end of the day.
Well, if I don't get any questions, let me ask a question. Was this useful to you? Good information?
Yeah.
Good.
It was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Very,
Judy, go ahead.
I said very useful.
Oh, okay, good.
One
I
thing
have a
I
question.
really enjoyed, just really quick, one thing I really enjoyed about this class, Bill, is the fact that it wasn't about the boxes that need to be checked as a president. It was more about the nature of being a president. The boxes
Exactly.
being checked, that's just a list. That's just a thing. It's not about the heart of what being a president is and how to be an effective leader. And so I really appreciate that about this course. All right, Greg, go ahead.
this might be too big of a question for the last 3 minutes, but for those who have been there, who've done it, how does one go set about the task of starting a strategic or 5-year plan for one's group?
I'll take that one offline with you, Greg, since we're both in the same general area. Why don't I share with you what I've got, and we'll go from there. I stole
Great.
mine. I stole mine from a chapter down in Texas, and I liked the format of it, and I modified it and worked it. Then I took it to my board and said, "This is my draft," and we modified it and we agreed it, and we then presented it to the chapter. Somebody's got to start it someplace. I actually believe that there are no original authors in the world. Everything's been stolen from somebody else. But it really boils down to having a conversation. Get it worked out on paper, then have the conversation. You got to get buy-in from everybody. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Makes sense.
And to go along with that, Greg, you need the input of your fellow chorus members. It's not just something that your board or yourself as a president can do. It's put together a group of individuals that you can visit with, talk with, present items, put them on a storyboard or what's the word I'm looking for? Not a storyboard, but a
Flip chart.
No, well, a flip chart's fine, but put them up on a wall so that you can take those, prioritize those, and be able to take what everybody agrees with and set purposes for those, and then goals and objectives on how you can accomplish all of those things too. And the guys that are part of the society's leadership team that go around and teach these things are more than willing. Bill's part of that. I'm part of that. Rob McDonald up in Seattle is part of that.
I agree.
We've got a lot of great ideas that are out there that we've partnered with each other to help present those. And if you're interested in those, I know that Bill will pass that information on to you.
Yeah. I don't have all your emails right in front of me, but if you would like the strategic plan from Bellevue, I'd be glad to send it to you. Just I'll send it to everybody who's in the thing today. I think I've got the emails elsewhere.
I had a very quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I also just discovered recently that I think humor is very important in running a chapter, and the president having a sense of humor is very important. But I also discovered that it can go wrong. You have to realize that you're in a position of more information than other people. And if you make a joke in the wrong way, people might interpret it incorrectly and think that you have information that they don't. And so I just discovered, well, it's certainly, I haven't had trouble with it before, but it can be a double-edged sword, and you got to be a little bit careful.
It can be, and I'm glad you brought it up. Here is absolute truth. The only person that you can make a joke about is yourself. It's the only person. You will, without doubt, offend somebody if you do not make a joke. So if you don't think you're funny, set the alarm clock for 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up and go look in the bathroom mirror. You'll find something that you can make a joke about. I guarantee you. In your case, Greg, there might be hair up there. Who knows? All right, folks, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for allowing me to do this. Katie, over to you.